There is about to be a huge change in licensing rights to major horror titles, and we're going to fill you in on all the details on how this affects the licenses in games like Dead by Daylight and the upcoming Friday the 13th game, and how this might lead to long-awaited IPs finally coming into DBD. So slash those like and subscribe buttons, because this is the best breakdown on these details you're going to get. Now let's get into it. Netflix recently announced their purchase plan of Warner Bros. For $82.7 billion. This isn't completely official or a done deal yet, and you have Paramount aggressively bidding in the mix. But it looks like Netflix is going to be closing in on this sooner than later, or at the very least, they're the current frontrunner for this purchase. This would mean Netflix will control Warner Bros. Film and television studios, HBO, HBO Max, and the rights to properties like Batman, Harry Potter, the DC Universe, and a bunch of other non-horror IPs. But the big horror titles that this affects are Final Destination, The Conjuring Universe, Gremlins, Mortal Kombat, Beetlejuice, and the titles that have the most effect on horror gaming, Evil Dead, It and Welcome to Derry, Friday the 13th, and Nightmare on Elm Street. So obviously this could mean big changes for in-game content for games like Dead by Daylight and the upcoming Friday the 13th game. And I'm about to break down what it could mean for each license with Netflix as the new owner. Over the years, Behaviour seems to have had an up and down relationship with Netflix. Dead by Daylight released the first Stranger Things chapter back in September of 2019, and it was a huge hit. But then about 2 years later, when the licensing agreement between Behaviour and Netflix expired, Netflix decided not to renew the contract. And in November of 2021, Behaviour experienced something that's never happened before in Dead by Daylight at the time: characters being removed from the game. Two years went by and players never stopped letting the devs know how badly they wanted Stranger Things back in the fog. But Behaviour's relationship with Netflix seemed not only non-existent, but even flat out on bad terms. Listen to this clip from our interview with Mathieu Cote when we asked him about a Stranger Things return back in May of 2023.
Stranger Things.
Yeah, what about it?
Everyone's begging for Hawkins Lab and just all how relevant it is now. People just want so much more of it. Is this something that, how interested are you guys in revisiting?
Have you talked to people at Netflix recently?
I've tried to.
Yeah, me too.
That's super fair.
I mean, we have never wanted to remove content from the game.
Absolutely.
It's never been our plan or a business plan. That being said, we have talked about potentially like limited time offers for a few different things, because that could be interesting, but that's never been the plan so far. And so it was not our decision to remove that content. And if we could get it back, we would be happy to.
But finally, on November 6th of 2023, Stranger Things returned to Dead by Daylight. And not only did the original chapter return, but now next month in January of 2026, we're going to be getting a second Stranger Things chapter with 2 new survivors and what seems to be featuring Vecna as the killer. So it appears the relationship between Behaviour and Netflix is not only on good terms, but probably better than ever. So what could this mean for the iconic horror properties that Netflix would now own with the Warner Bros. Acquisition? Let's start with the easiest one, Evil Dead. Ash Williams came into Dead by Daylight way back in 2019 and has only received a limited amount of cosmetics since his release. Could this mean that we can finally get Pablo and Kelly from Ash vs. Evil Dead in DBD? No. Unfortunately, the rights for Evil Dead are a bit of a mess. The Ash vs. Evil Dead series is owned by Starz and Lionsgate, so the characters of Pablo and Kelly and everyone else excluding Ash Williams from Evil Dead would not be part of this Netflix purchase. Warner Bros. Only owns the rights to Evil Dead Rise and the upcoming Evil Dead Burn, but there may be a chance for Ellie to come in as a killer for an Evil Dead Rise chapter. Not only was this a huge movie, but it was also a great movie, and that being tied to the name Evil Dead could generate a lot of interest as a new chapter. Let us know what you think the chances of this happening are in the comments. Now let's talk about one of the big ones, extending the Nightmare on Elm Street chapter and Freddy Krueger getting more cosmetics. The Nightmare rights are also divided, so it does make things a little complicated. But don't worry, I'm going to break it all down for you. When Freddy Krueger and Quentin were initially licensed for Dead by Daylight in 2017, the Wes Craven estate was not involved because New Line Cinema, who is owned by Warner Bros. And would also be owned by Netflix if this purchase does end up happening, owned the rights to the franchise at the time. So the problem that everyone is aware of with Behaviour not being able to add anything for Freddy or Quentin was always with New Line Cinema, and whatever the problem is with that relationship. You can even point to the brick wall they've always hit with New Line Cinema trying to add Pennywise into the game. And don't worry, we'll get into that a little later, because those odds are about to be looking better than ever. But the Craven estate regained the rights for the Nightmare on Elm Street franchise in September of 2019. And now they control the US domestic rights to the original 1984 Nightmare on Elm Street film and the characters within that movie and that story. New Line Cinema owns international distribution and franchise rights for all existing films globally, including every single sequel in the franchise. So this means for any new Freddy Krueger or Nightmare on Elm Street content, especially for an international game like Dead by Daylight, both the Craven estate and what will be Netflix once this sale goes through would have to agree. And it would be out of New Line Cinema's hands completely. So given Behaviour's recent run with Netflix, could they be halfway to finally getting an OG Freddy Krueger skin into the fog? Obviously, they would have to deal with likeness rights with Robert Englund, who has recently shown a bunch of interest in voicing Freddy Krueger for any animated series or film, but I would imagine that would also go for video games. So that might be the easy part. And the Craven estate has made no secret about taking pitches for a new movie, TV series, and all kinds of new Nightmare content. So it's highly likely that they would be open to new Nightmare content in Dead by Daylight. And Netflix giving a green light from their side would probably help things out a lot. And if you're going to bring in a Robert Englund skin for Freddy Krueger, an agreement like that very well could open the door for getting a new survivor like Nancy Thompson added while you're already working on the chapter. Again, let us know in the comments how much you want to see this and if you think there's a chance the Netflix deal could be a doorway into making this happen. Now let's get to one of the two white horses left for Dead by Daylight. One of the two licenses that are hands down the biggest and most wanted properties, Pennywise. Getting Pennywise into Dead by Daylight would be less complicated than the Freddy situation with Nightmare on Elm Street, but still has its problems even with Netflix purchasing the rights from New Line Cinema and Warner Bros. While the rights for It Chapter 1 and 2, along with the new appearance and likeness of Pennywise in those films, are owned by Warner Bros. Through New Line Cinema, Stephen King still owns the core intellectual property rights to his original novel and those characters, which is obviously what these movies are based on. So with Stephen King still maintaining strong creative control and his strong dislike for video games, he is still a pretty large hurdle to get over. But considering how hot Welcome to Derry has become, and the fact that it's on HBO, which Netflix will own after this deal is done, Stephen King and Netflix will most likely be working together a lot. If there was ever a time a property arguably being at its highest would be the time to branch out into other forms of media and collabs. And if there was ever a connection that could influence Stephen King into giving gaming a chance, you would think Netflix would be the connection to get that done, right? This is probably the best chance Behaviour would have to finally bring Pennywise into Dead by Daylight. But will it be enough? And Welcome to Derry has already been signed on for a season 2. So if a deal was made for a Pennywise chapter, obviously that would get pushed up Behaviour's priority list. and development on that chapter very well could be complete around the release of Chapter 2 of Welcome to Derry. Let us know in the comments if you guys think this might line up perfectly. And last, but certainly not least, is Friday the 13th and Jason Voorhees. To be completely honest, I don't think the situation with Jason changes at all for Dead by Daylight. Seeing how we've seen no movement with this for so long, and Mathieu Cote being asked so many times about Jason coming into the fog, and the answer pretty much being the same every time.
There are two names on that list. The sort of the ones that got away, right? Or the ones that never were. That's Jason and Pennywise.
Jason.
Let him guess. I was going to say, let him guess.
Yeah,
I say 2.
2? Who's the other?
The other one
Who
is
am I
probably
missing?
Pennywise, I would imagine.
Nah.
You're always right, Paulie.
The legal troubles seem to be over now. None of these things are ever simple. And the legal troubles for around Jason specifically, or Friday the 13th and all that property, have been over in the past, and then started again, and then have been over again, and then started again. It's almost like the movies, right?
Jason, I mean, the game lost the license to the game, right? This one is a legal quagmire. Like, it's literally a tar pit. You don't want to put your finger in it because you're going to get sucked in.
Is Jason the next killer?
Oh, sorry, I misheard. What did you say?
I said,
Say that with your whole face again and hope that I answer.
is Jason the next killer?
Not here, that's fine. It's not me being the jerk not answering here. It's you being silly by asking. How do I answer that?
You don't, but I have to ask it anyway.
No, and you're absolutely right.
Are you releasing Jason for anniversary for year 10? No, I know you can't. I know you can't answer that.
Pass.
There is hope. Absolutely, there is hope. Jason exists. Some people are actually currently managing his estate. Yeah.
When either of them are ready to make the move, the doors of the entity's realms are wide open. Of course, they have a standing invitation to come in whenever they want.
Thing that I've repeated many times over the years, which is that the day he's ready to come to Dead by Daylight, the door is wide open. And we would still very much like to have Jason in the game. Like, that is never gonna go away. Same goes for Pennywise.
Really
I'd like Jason.
never
Like,
thought about it.
I'd do stuff to get Jason in the game.
And the biggest reason being, Jason Universe seems to be all in on the new game they announced earlier this year. So why would Jason Universe hand over their gold to a competing game? Just reading the room on both Behaviour and Jason Universe's end, I don't see Jason coming to DVD anytime soon. And maybe even at all if Jason's new game does well. But realistically, as far as the Netflix purchase goes, Jason sees the best and most straightforward outcome, because it doesn't seem like this will affect them or force them to make any changes for their future content at all. As everyone knows, Jason and Friday the 13th have had a ton of problems in the past, but with the organization of Jason Universe, they have really set themselves up for long-term success, and pretty much bulletproof from rights changing hands between large companies, which we're starting to see more and more of these days. There really is only one aspect that this Netflix purchase could affect for the upcoming Jason game, and that would be the Friday the 13th title, which is currently owned by Warner Bros. Through New Line Cinema. Since the new Jason game is already in development, early development, but development nonetheless, I'd imagine all steps have already been taken to set this up if Jason Universe even decides to use the title of Friday the 13th. So with the Netflix deal, this is more than likely a non-factor. And the only other thing that could be affected for this game would be any remake content. The 2009 Friday the 13th remake came out under New Line Cinema, so if the new game plans to have any cosmetic variations, characters, or story from the 2009 film in the new game, they would have to go through Warner Bros. And New Line Cinema, or Netflix after the purchase goes through. But even if this isn't something that's worked out already, this is always something that could be added down the road, which would probably even be better for the game to be able to release new content. So the Jason game is set up very well for their future, And now we just have to wait and see what they bring to the table with it. But now it's time for what you guys think. Let us know in the comments what you think about all of these possibilities. Do you think the Netflix deal will finally bring Pennywise into Dead by Daylight? Do you think this new deal will bring more Freddy Krueger content into the fog? Get in the comments and let us know, and we'll catch you on the next video. Good night from Slasher Radio.